computer. Yes, so it really depends on your perspective. Some people say, no, this definitely did happen. Other people say, no, it was a dream. Some of the discomfort, some of the reason to be inclined to think it was a dream is because I believe, wasn't it the Rambam who got really hung up on this, that only after Moshe, the only prophecy anyone got was through a dream. And so it had to have been a dream and couldn't be real. The other is that it's uncomfortable. And we're going to see today, in my opinion, it gets worse, I think. We want to, it's uncomfortable for many reasons, right? And so it would certainly be nice to be able to suggest that we could avoid this altogether by saying it was a dream. Okay, so it looks like folks are here. Hi, everyone. So just a quick recap, just in terms of procedure. So it's wonderful to see all of you. Thank you for coming. Once we start talking about the text itself, I will share my screen. Everyone who has a book in front of them, please just jump in at any time. You can unmute yourselves with any interesting commentary or thoughts or questions you might have. So I think for now I'm going to be working. This is the Mosada Rav Kook series, for those of you who may recognize it from many a bookshelf. And so they have good commentary here. So this is what I'm choosing to use as my supporting source for while we meet, in addition, of course, to using some others for preparation. And so hopefully we have a range of sources available. And it's great to be able to study. Is everyone seeing Wendy is being pinned? I don't know. Maybe I don't know how to do this. I don't really know how to use Zoom. Okay, I just didn't want you to fill
What does being pinned mean?
You were like the big picture in my screen. I didn't know if that was true for everybody.
It depends on the view that you select.
Okay.
If you select the speaker view, so see in the upper right-hand corner, it has sign in, recording view, Great. And there are different views.
Okay.
So if you have
And FYI, if it's on speaker view and someone who's not supposed to be talking like coughs or sneezes or makes a noise, then it goes on to them. So if Wendy was rustling papers, Ruth, then might have preempted your talking and you're not being in the main view.
So what should it be on?
Well, it should be on speaker view for you.
Right, that's what
we should all mute ourselves and then.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure, that's fine. Okay, perfect.
And only unmute when we want to talk. Otherwise, our rustling of papers.
Yes,
definitely. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. I don't know. Zoom. Yeah. Okay. So, Hoshea, let me share my screen now. Let's do a quick run through of what we saw last time.
Yes, they changed my setup, so I don't know how to mute.
Okay, here, I muted them for them. All right, so we saw that the word came to Hoshea ben Be'eri that just comes out of nowhere. We don't know who he is. During the reign of Yeravam in Israel, Yeravam is not a good king, so we know that things are not going to be going well, right? And then God shows up with this really bizarre, truly unprecedentedly bizarre instruction of go take this Eshet Zinunim, and we talked about what that meant if this is a woman who has been a professional, so to speak, harlot, or if this is a woman who has just committed adultery, cheated on her husband, been engaged in licentiousness, but hasn't had that as her formal undertaking. I don't know what to call it, right? And Yaldei Zinunim, we talked about, are these random children who were born to harlots, or are these the children she herself has born from her other partners? So take these because the land has strayed from God. Right? So clearly there's going to be some kind of a mashal parable here. So Hoshea listens and he marries Gomer bat Divlaim. And she conceives and bears him a son. Now, I did a lot of going back and revisiting a lot of the material because it's just so dense here, this first chapter. There is a suggestion. For every suggestion you can make about this chapter, someone's going to say the opposite. So there's a suggestion that Hoshea doesn't fully follow God's instructions here because he's told, go find some harlot to marry. And instead, he actually finds a woman who has a name, right? Gomer bat Divlaim, which implies that she has some kind of a status because she's mentioned by name. So some suggest that means he already didn't really follow the instructions. Okay, so they have a son, and God says, all right, you're going to call his name Yisrael, right? Not to be confused with Yisrael. Yisrael, in English, it's a little more clear, Jezreel, right? For I'm going to punish the house of Beit Yehu, and I'm going to destroy, put an end to the monarchy of the house of Israel. Not Judah, just Israel, right? And so there's this Jezreel, it's a little bit ambiguous. What exactly are we referring to here? The suggestion I think that I thought made sense, but I definitely am curious what others have, is that this was there was a big battle that Achav did something horrible there, and it's just a valley. It's known with, this is where Jews were fighting and being extremely violent towards each other, and that this is, and Jezreel, the valley of Jezreel, is a place therefore that carries a strong symbolism to it because it is the home of such violence, Jew between Jew violence, that it's kind of like that's where you know bad things were going to happen, and this is a place that represents that, and so that's why God says, "Veshavarti keshet Yisrael be'emek Yisrael." Right, I'm going to break the bow of Israel, this whole kingdom, in that valley. So it's not a great place, but walking around with your name being Israel isn't as horrid as the next two children. All right, Batahar od v'telei bat. Now she gets pregnant, she has a daughter, right? And now the name is Lo Ruchama. So, you know, that they don't translate that name here, but Lo Ruchama, like won't have mercy. Because God says, I'm no longer gonna have any mercy on the house of Israel. This translation here definitely is not literal, right? Because it says I will no longer accept the house of Israel, pardon them. Okay, I will od arachim kilosif od arachim at Beit Yisrael. I'm not going to have any more mercy on Israel. Yeah. So big change in name here, right? It's completely unambiguous. Now we get to our parentheses, but at Beit Yehuda arachim. But I am going to, have mercy on the house of Judah, and I'm going to save them. And all these great, I won't have them be destroyed. Okay. So we've got Israel, we've got Lo Ruchama, and now Vatigmol at Lo Ruchama, Vatahar Vateled Ben. After weaning Lo Ruchama, she conceived and bore a son. Now, I saw someone mention that the fact that she weans Lo Ruchama, but she doesn't wean Israel, right? It's not been mentioned there, it's only mentioned here, indicates some imbalance between them. I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. What I suggested last time is I think that it also indicates that like a lot of time is passing. It's reminding us that it's not just about having a child and then immediately having another one. First you nurse and then wean and then have another one, right? So if this is indeed not a dream and it is reality, this is something, this is a multi-year endeavor. Okay, now she has a son, and God says, name him Lo Ami, right? Not even more explicit than Lo Ruchama, I want to have mercy. Lo Ami, you're not my nation, because Atem Lo Ami, ve'anochi lo ehyeh lachem, and I will not be for you, right? There's almost that root-like language that it evokes of like, we're just not going to be for each other, right? You're not my people, I'm not going to be your God. Okay, that was our run through. Now, if anyone has any comments, Thera, yes, I see you raised your hand.
First of all, Wendy was trying to get your attention earlier.
Oh no! So just interrupt me.
Right. Well,
okay.
But I think the hand works better, is what I'm
sure. Saying. That's whatever you prefer.
Okay. So I'd like to hear from Anne. I was just saying that I'd like to hear from Wendy.
Oh, please, yes.
Okay, so I just had a note that the second child was named for Judah, and the period of weaning was because the Judean kingdom was going to last longer.
See, interesting. Okay, interesting. I hadn't seen that approach yet. Oh, who says that?
This is in Art Scroll.
Oh, okay.
From Malbim. And even Ezra interprets the sun as representing the 10 tribes in their exile and the children who will be born to them. Following along the lines of Targum, who renders, and that generation shall be exiled among the nations, will be forgotten.
Okay, interesting.
I have similar comments with a different book.
With a different what?
Different book. I have this one, but the same comments that Wendy had about the fact that they will not be comforted because they're going to be in exile.
Okay, interesting.
I think the implication is what when you wean a child and you don't care for them anymore, you're casting them off somehow. I'm puzzled by that.
Yeah. I find we'll also see in a minute with chapter 2, the imagery. I'm not sold on all of it. I guess some of it, yeah, I don't know, a little bit strange, some of it to me. Any other comments? Okay. All right. So that's our very, very harsh introduction. Excuse me. All right. Chapter 2 is a longer chapter, so we may get through it or we may not, depending on how our notes and discussion go. So, chapter 2, take a bit of a different tone. V'haya mispar b'nei Yisrael kechol hayam asher lo yimad ve'lo yisaper. V'haya bimkom asher ya'amer lahem lo ami atem ya'amer lahem b'nei el chai. So the number of people of Israel shall be like that of the sands of the sea, which cannot be measured or counted. And instead of being told, you are not my people, right, lo ami, they shall be called children of the living God, right? So we go from lo ami to b'nei el chai. So this is already really, it's kind of telling us that the setup from chapter 1 is only to then emphasize the degree of transformation into chapter 2. Page. Okay. And also we point out that this is the fulfillment of the bracha that God gives to Abraham, right? That your children will be like Chol Hayam. Now it is being fulfilled. And then v'nikbetzu b'nei Yehuda u'b'nei Yisrael yachtav v'samu lahem rosh echad ve'alu min ha'aretz ki gadol yom Yisrael. The people of Judah and the people of Israel shall assemble together and appoint one head over them, and they shall rise from the ground, for marvelous shall be the day of Jezreel, of Israel. Right? So we've addressed the son Lo Ami, and now also this child named Israel. This is going to be a time of great celebration because everyone is going to join together and rise up together. Any comments here so far?
Yeah, yes, Bruce has a comment, I think.
I'm sorry.
Oh, beautiful.
I'm just confused. God has already promised all of the Israelites that he'll be their God. How can he actually say now, they will not be my people and I will not be their God? We've gone through the curses, what happens if you don't obey, but it's never, I will stop being your God. So I don't understand how we can now all of a sudden in Hosea contradict what was in Torah.
That's a very, very, very good question. Anyone have any thoughts or comments on that?
I have no answer.
I don't either. Yeah. I mean, right. I think it's a question also of like, are these, is all of Nevi'im just a series of empty threats? It's the part of the irony of certainly of the Treyasar, I think, is that who Dafgar, the people who take this stuff seriously, is the people of Nineveh, right? In Sefer Yonah, in the book of Jonah. They're the ones who hear God's message and actually repent, right? And that sends Yonah into an identity crisis. We're not as good at getting that message.
So I have some comments that refers to it as allegory, that it's as if, and this is from it's in Pesukim, that's the reference, and other references, but that essentially the analogy that the rabbis give is as if a king gets angry at his wife and he casts her aside, and then he has regrets and he takes her back. And so initially, God might have said that, or maybe Hoshea thought that that's what he said, but that God kind of thought the better of it and decided, well, no, change his name, and I regret, and I'm still going to be your God, and you're still going to be my people.
Does it say that anywhere?
It's references that in rabbinic commentary, but it doesn't say it in the text. No. And so your point is well taken. And the rabbis are apparently as disturbed as you are because they're trying to make excuses for what the first section said versus the second section, where God kind of takes it back and changes the kid's name.
I was thinking about the sins that were being promulgated at that period of time, and they're quite serious, and they are in multitude, and God wanted to leave the Jewish people several times, maybe before they entered the land of Israel. So with the sin of the Egel, right before Matan Torah, he was ready to give up on them and destroy them. And there were several instances where that happened.
Moses talked him out of it.
Yeah, Moses had to talk him out of it. And right now, nobody's talking him out of it. But if you look at the book of King and you see what kind of sins they are committing, it's not just small sins. They were even bringing children as sacrifices. They were propagating prostitution. I mean, it was really bad, both on the moral side and on the relationship with God.
I don't want to be a contrarian, but God sees the future. He knew they were going to do that when he made the promise, you will be my people.
Yeah, God sees the future, and we are here, and the war in Gaza is killing a lot of our people. So, and the Holocaust happened, and God is still here. So I don't know. I don't have an answer to that, Bruce. But I do know that the sins based on the text from early prophets basically say those sins were outrageous.
Yeah. Athira.
So Radak has yet another explanation of trying to figure out the reconciliation between the first and second chapters. And he says that not my people is in the past, and that there will come a time when you are as numerous as the sand of the sea, referring to the days to come. So for now, you're not my people, but in the future, you will be my people because the Messiah will come and things will be reconciled. And in fact, the fact that if you think that they're addressing the Northern Kingdom when they say you're not my people, the Northern Kingdom really for all intents and purposes has been lost.
Yeah.
And when the exile ended after Babylon, it was only Judah and Benjamin, I guess the people from the country, the land of Judah, that did return. And we're still wondering what happened to the other 10 tribes. And that would be something to look forward to in Messianic times. So I think that is kind of what Radak is trying to say.
Beautiful.
But again, it's showing that the rabbis are just as puzzled
I know.
as Bruce. So.
Yeah, and that's where we'll in a few verses we'll talk about some of my discomfort. Yeah, Maraji, are you raising your hand? Maraji, I think you're still muted. I can't hear you.
Okay,
there you go.
I may have forgotten something, but did the original covenant include that God was going to be their people, their God all the time, or they were going to be his people all the time, or just that they would be as numerous as the stars and the sands of the sea? Because here he didn't revoke that part.
They will be his people.
Yes, they will be his people. Did he ever say, I will be your people forever? Your God forever?
Exactly.
You'll be my people forever?
Doesn't say forever.
At Sinai, he says, he says that. I can't quote the exact verse.
I don't know. Yeah, we'd have to. I don't have a Chumash in front of me. But that's a very, very, very good question. If anyone wants to look it up. Thank you for raising that. Okay. So now we have to deal with lo ruchama. Imru le'achechem ami le'achotechem ruchama. So say to your brothers, my nation, right? And to your sisters, ruchama. In other words, we're removing the lo from both of them, right? We're now, you are my people, and we're now ruchama, right? Like there is mercy. I don't, I'm just, at some point, if someone can tell me how yours translates ruchama here, I lovingly accept it. I don't know why they went with that. The book I have emphasizes mercy, rachamim, not accepted.
In my book, which is the Stone edition, it says pitied.
Pitied. Okay. All right. That's better than this one accepted, I think. Okay. Rivu be'imchem rivu ki hi lo ishti ve'anochi lo isha v'taser zinuneha mipaneha ve'na'afufeha mibein shadeha. Okay, here's where things get sticky. Remonstrate your mother, remonstrate her, apologies if I'm mispronouncing that word, for she is not my wife and I am not her husband. And let her put away her whoredom from her face and her adultery from between her breasts. Rivu, does anyone have a better translation of rivu?
Strive, meaning fight.
Yeah, exactly. Fight, right? Good. Glad. Yes. Fight your mother because she is not my wife. I'm not her husband. Right? Let her go fix who she is because she's kind of like still tainted by this adultery. And where I get like where I'm struggling, well, here, let's do the next couple verses and then we will then let's talk about this as a whole. Pen afshitena aruma v'hitzagtiha k'yom hivadla v'samtiha k'mibar v'shatiha k'eretziya v'hamitiha betzama. Else I will strip her naked and leave her as on the day she was born, and I'll make her like a wilderness, right? Like a midbar. Render her like desert land and let her die of thirst. Right? So if she sticks around, this is what I'm doing to her. Ve'paneha lo arachem kivnei zinunim hema. And I will not have mercy on her children because they are a whore's brood. Why? Kizinta imam hovisha horatam ki amra elcha acharei mahavai notnei lachmi umeimai. Excuse me. Tzamri ufishti samni v'shikuyai. In that their mother has played the whore, she that convinced them has acted shamelessly, because she thought, I will go after my lovers who supply my bread and my water, my wool and my linen and my drink. All right, so let's pause here. So now, remember, we have redeemed the three children, right? Lo Ami is now Ami, Jezreel now seems to be a good thing, and Lo Ruchama is now Ruchama. What's going on here with the mother, who is the opposite of redeemed, right? Rejected as much as possible, fight her, spoken about in the most violent language. So I'm curious for your thoughts. And the mother and the Yaldei Zinunim, right? Also the children that she had brought from this previous marriage, depending on how you want to understand it. What's going on with this?
If she left with all of her stuff, then she will be tempted to continue behaving like that. But if I, Hashem, need to intervene and expose her for what she is and her children, then that will be the end, because everybody will see that she's nothing, basically, without those extra intricates, I guess is a good word.
Mm-hmm. Great.
But the positive message is that I don't want to do that, right? I want her to be ruchama. I want her to be. I want to have compassion for her.
Right. I want to be able to cleanse her. Right. I guess where my struggles are is like the children are able to like instantaneously be flipped, but yet she and her children from the previous relationships, which of course isn't fair to them, but I don't think that's how we think at this time. They're sort of like, they're tainted, right? And that to me, I think is just what I'm struggling with a little bit, which is just the minute Hoshea married her, it seems like he was able to temporarily suspend that part of her. And certainly the children were tainted only by name, right? But not in character, not in their essence. But that doesn't actually then revert back to her, right? She remains tainted. Her other children remain tainted. They resemble all of the bad things. And I'm just like a little, I'm a little confused by that, especially because it's saying, well, she has really bad taste and she only craves bad things. Well, she married Hoshea, so Wendy, I see you raising your hand.
Isn't she meant to represent the children of Israel, the people who are following false idols, who are doing all of these horrific things, which is going to send them into exile? So if that is what she represents, she hasn't changed. They do get sent into exile. The children were the outcome of her marrying a prophet, so they're not tainted in the same way the general nation is.
I think you have to do it on the board.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I want to see if Joyce, do you want to also share? Because maybe we can build a couple things together.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'd like to go back to an earlier part of our discussion in terms of what God promised. In the last 5 minutes, I've not done an exhaustive research.
Yes.
I went back to Sinai, okay? And this is the early part of Yitro, and where God says in Yitro, Exodus 19, verse 5. Now then, if you will obey me faithfully and keep my covenant, and we can see here we've had a problem, as Aya pointed out, you shall be my treasured possession among all the peoples. Indeed, all the earth is mine, but you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. So there's no, well, on the one hand, there's no time limit. There's no forever here, although forever may occur in other passages that I haven't looked up yet. But it is conditional. If you keep my covenant, and as Bruce pointed out, I think it's in Deuteronomy where God says, God through Moses says, you're going to screw up badly, okay? And we're now at that point in the prophets where the consequences of the misbehavior of the Jewish people are coming to bear. But anyway, I just wanted to refresh everybody's memory on this early promise of chosenness, but it is conditional. Okay.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Raise your hand with Parach.
Doesn't way back with Abraham, God in part of the covenant with the pieces, God promises him his progeny will be his forever. I mean, I don't have a chumash now. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce, but it doesn't say when will that happen. So we might not have gotten there yet.
Yes.
Okay, I also wanted to say, following up on Wendy with the mother and the children, the way I read it, which may be wrong, is I read the mother as the current state of the Israelites as being violating all the commandments, and the children being those who come back and redeem themselves, and that's why they are cleansed. It's an offer that you can become the child by coming back to me, and if not, you say the mother. But I may be off the wall in my reading.
No, I mean, you see the kids as being active?
I see the kids as being what is hoped for, that you can be this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Okay.
I think I don't read this, although the pshat will point to it, as just a woman and her children. It's more of insinuation of Israel, the Shekhinah, the state of morality that is there, and the potential future. And it's actually somewhat hopeful, more hopeful than in the first chapter, because it's saying that there is hope that there'll be mercy and they'll come back to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wouldn't read it as, I would read it as like using the mother as or the woman. And I don't know why they do that. Why aren't they using the guys? The guys are the ones that probably sinning more than the women. Actually, in King, both of them do. But it's a picture of what God's presence or absence is going to be.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Let's do a few more verses and see like where this goes. Okay, Lachen hineni sach et darkech basirim vegadarti et gdeira benetivoteha lo timtza. Assuredly, I will hedge her roads with thorns and raise walls against her, and she shall not find paths, right? Nowhere to go. Veridfa et ma'aveha velo tasigotam ubikashtam velo timtza ve'amra elcha ve'ashuva el ishi harishon ki tov li az me'ata. Pursue her lovers as she will, she shall not overtake them, and seek them as she may, she shall never find them. Then she will say, I will go and return to my first husband, for then I fared better than now. Right? So grass isn't always greener, I guess is how we would say. And eventually she wants to end up at the first husband, because it turns out you don't actually usually find what you're looking for in these types of things. Elena, did you want to say something? You looked amused by this.
And I was just laughing of, what the heck? I just I will go back to my first husband.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Right. I mean, I don't think this is an uncommon theme amongst people who decide to leave something that they've been in for a long time, whether it's a relationship, a job, I don't know what else, right? Is that after a while, maybe sometimes you find what you're looking for and other times you do not.
Also a return to her evil ways. She came to Hosea the prophet, and now Israel is returning to her evil ways.
She wants to return to her evil ways.
Yes.
Uh-huh. Okay. Okay, so that's interesting that you see that, because so like for example, the commentary here, Ishi Harishon, he says, who Hashem, that is God actually. Meaning she has been looking around. Those are the other lovers that she's been pursuing, or I assume that means other idols. And now it turns out actually she wants to come back to God. Which means, but you're right, it's confusing imagery, because implied is that Hoshea was not her first marriage by any means, right? So who is this Ishi Arishon? Okay.
Does it also suggest that she's only going back? It's not a wholehearted repentance.
Right.
She tried the others but didn't find anything better, but it's not a wholehearted decision to return to something that she wants, repentance.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, she so sad in the next paragraph when he said that she didn't know that I gave her the corn, the wine, and the oil. Oh my God.
Yeah.
She didn't know that. She didn't
know. Yeah. So, right. And she did not consider this. It was I who bestowed on her the new grain and wine and oil. I who lavished on her, and gold, which they used for Baal, right? Baal, of course, being one of the main idols that the Israelites worshipped during this time in the Northern Kingdom. Lachin ashuv v'lakachti degani be'ito v'tiroshi b'moado v'hitzalti tzamri b'pishti lechasot et erbata. Assuredly, I will take back my new grain in its time and my new wine in its season, and I will snatch away my wool and my linen that serve to cover her nakedness. So just that one thing I wanted to point out here is that this is, it's certainly, as many of you have said, it's not an unusual punishment to say you're gonna, your crops aren't gonna grow, right? Everything, certainly you see in Devarim and lots of places, right? Everything God says, I'm gonna ruin your crops and everything. Of course, this being really the biggest threat at the time. What I think is interesting here is that it's not something that God is doing as an expression of a punitive desire, but really it's retributive, right? You took my grain, my wine to use for bad purposes, so now I'm taking it back from you. I just thought that was like an interesting layer that we don't see as often.
But as a consequence, the tshuva isn't really a complete tshuva. I mean, it's like, I'm taking things away for you. You're not feeling so good anymore, and you'll come back to me. That's not exactly it's not honest. It's not wholehearted.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Ve'ata agale et navluta le'enei ahaveha ve'ish lo yatzilena miyadi. Now will I uncover her shame in the very sight of her lovers, and not one of them shall save her from me. So that definitely is a recurring theme of Israel being exposed to all of her supposed friends and no one coming to save her, right? That theme of isolation is present in Eicha and elsewhere. Certainly, I mean, this is way beforehand, but is definitely in keeping with imagery of post-destruction of the first temple, etc. Okay, v'hishbati kol mesosa chaga chadsha v'shabata v'chol mo'ada. And I will end all her rejoicing, her festivals, her new moons and Sabbaths, and all her festive seasons. Vehasimoti gafna v'te'enata asher amra etna hema li asher natnu li me'ahavai v'samtim la'ya'ar v'achaltam chayat hasadeh. I will lay waste her vines and her fig trees, which she thinks are a fee she received from her lovers. I will turn them into brushwood, and beasts of the field shall devour them. Ufakadati aleha et yemei haba'alim asher taktir lahem, v'ta'ad nizmah v'chelyata, v'tilech acharei ma'ahaveha, ve'oti shachacha ne'um Hashem. Thus I will punish her for the days of the Baalim on which she brought them offerings. When, decked with earrings and jewels, she would go after her lovers, forgetting me, declares God. So I'm curious whether it's your own thoughts or footnotes, just with our last 5 minutes. This is quite a roller coaster of a first half of the chapter. This is where a lot of the dividing line was between the two parts of the chapter. So I figured, given the time, we can pause here. So what I'm curious for you all is, what is this, right? Why bring her in, have these children with these very harsh meanings of their names, change the names, then say it's going to get better one day, but actually, she's really, really awful. And, then we get sucked back in. It's sort of like, if we're hovering between a place of, are we trying to see the positive side of something or the negative? We're trying to make a decision. You can get in a space of being positive about something, but then it's very, very easy to then flip that switch and get sucked back into the negative. And it kind of feels like that's what's going on here. So I just love your thoughts on how we can make sense of this first half of this chapter.
I said that before, but I'll try to elaborate. I don't think we're dealing here with a woman and her lovers and God. I think we're dealing here with a state of the Jewish people at that period of time and God, and that's a struggle between them. And her lovers, or the lovers of the Jewish people at that time, were the Baal, were the prostitution, the dirtying of the land. And he basically is expressing the fact that there is a chance for Teshuvah, there is a chance for God to come back. but it's at a very high price. He doesn't think it's going to happen with the current generation. This current generation, it might happen with the next one if they mend their ways. So this, I guess Hoshea is trying to make his message understandable to the people that he's preaching to. So I wouldn't take it as this just dealing with a woman and husband or lovers, but the state of the land itself.
Okay.
And there is, it alludes in the text to different sins. Like if you read this in Hebrew, you would think about Noah and the sin of Noah.
Mm-hmm.
You read the previous psukim, you think about the sin of the Egel and what God did or wanted to do and how Moses intervened. I guess Hoshea doesn't have the strength to intervene. The only way to get God back on their side is to mend their ways. It's less dark than the first chapter because he doesn't make the distinction here between the 10 tribes and the tribe of Judah. It seems to be a message for the whole people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that part's very interesting. It's like getting a little off focus. Thera, yes.
So I have some comments that Radak at certain points said that the references to the lovers are Assyria and Egypt, who the kings of Israel turned to help them with their, I guess, their struggles. And that not necessarily the common people, but the kings in particular led the people astray.
Yeah.
And specifically by going after other allies and not relying on God in prayer and their own.
Definitely. Yeah. Turn to everyone but God for help. Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, I know that I leave off feeling a little bit like, what direction are we actually trying to go here? The emphasis on the negativity so much makes it a little bit hard to just accept the first few verses where it's like, actually, it'll all be fixed. But here, let's revisit in great detail all of the sins that are currently happening. So definitely next week we will. I may have to change the time slightly, but we'll send out a note. We will go and we will try to figure out what's going on here, and what direction we're trying to take, and what I think more importantly, what direction, I think I should say it differently. What tone are we trying to strike? I think to me, it's a little bit convoluted at this point. So okay, I have to go run and teach another class. But it was really, really wonderful to see you. Thank you for joining. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Great class.
Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you
Bye,
so
everyone.
much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth.
Lost my menu. I can't find it. Here we go.